When AI fails inside a company, it almost never happens on day one. Day one looks good. The system works. Outputs are correct. The team is impressed. Week one, still good. Month one still looks like a success. That's the problem. Because by the time something actually breaks, you're no longer at the beginning. You're already deep into the system. A few months ago, a company I worked with deployed AI into one of their core workflows. It replaced a manual process. What used to take hours now took minutes. The first results were exactly what they hoped for. Faster processing, fewer errors, less manual effort. Rolled it out further, integrated it deeper, started relying on it more. Because why wouldn't they? It was working, but a few weeks in, something subtle started happening. One team member noticed an output that felt slightly off. Not wrong, just not quite right. They corrected it and moved on, because everything else looked fine. A few days later, it happened again. Different case, same feeling. They fixed it again, didn't escalate it, because technically, the system was still working. Have you seen this? Where something feels slightly unreliable, but not enough to stop using it? That's where the real problem starts. Because now, the system is introducing small errors without triggering a response. And those errors don't stay isolated. They accumulate quietly. Another team I worked with had automated part of their internal reporting. At first, everything matched expectations. Clean reports, consistent outputs. But over time, small inconsistencies started appearing. Numbers that didn't fully align. Minor discrepancies between reports. Nothing major, but enough to require checking. So they adapted. They started reviewing certain outputs, then more outputs, then eventually, almost everything. Not because the system failed, because they no longer fully trusted it. That's the shift. And it doesn't happen immediately. That's why it's dangerous. Because by the time trust drops, you've already built the system into your operations. You've already made decisions based on it. You've already scaled it. So now, you can't just remove it. You have to work around it. That's where AI stops being a solution and starts becoming overhead. And most companies don't see it coming because they're looking for obvious failure, a crash, a major error, a system breaking. But that's not how it happens. It happens through drift, small inaccuracies, minor inconsistencies, subtle changes in behavior that don't trigger alarms, but change how people work. That's the real failure mode, not immediate breakdown, delayed misalignment, and by the time it's visible, it's already embedded in your process. This is an AI clone, by the way, on purpose, because this is exactly how we use AI inside our own work. I run Data Wonder. We build AI systems for companies that want to automate real business processes and make sure those systems actually remain reliable over time. Insurance, accounting, healthcare. And this pattern is one of the most common things we see. Not systems failing early, systems failing late. Here's what makes this harder. When failure is delayed, it creates confidence first. And that confidence leads to decisions. You scaled a system. You reduce manual oversight. You rely on it more. All based on early results. So when problems appear later, they hit harder. Because now the system is critical. That's why this isn't just a technical issue. It's a timing issue. The success comes first. The problems come later. And most companies don't connect the two. They treat them as separate events, but they're part of the same timeline. That's the part nobody plans for. So what actually prevents this? Not better AI, not more testing at the start. You need ongoing visibility. You need to track where outputs start to shift, where people start compensating, where trust begins to drop. Because those are early signals before failure becomes obvious. And someone needs to own that. Not just deployment, the system over time. Because AI doesn't fail immediately, it fails gradually, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. I'm curious if you've seen this. A system that worked perfectly at first, but slowly became harder to rely on, where the problems didn't show up until it was already deeply integrated. And if that's happening inside your company, that's exactly the kind of problem we solve. You can book an introduction call using the link below.